Not expect to have to explain this in the comments, but this proves my point because I am fully black. I don't even think about it until people ask me to explain or say, what are you mixed with? But this is my mom. She is black, entirely black, and this is my dad, and so is he, and so...
Well, kind of, sorry.
Yeah, because he got that little dancing eye. We don't want him to... Man, what, you put a perm in your hair?
Huh?
Did you put a perm in your hair?
No, my hair's like this.
Why your hair?
You like straight?
Yeah.
What you on,
You
Empire or
never
something?
seen my hair? You never seen my hair when it grows out?
Man.
Hey, man, I'm not all the way black, bro. I'm halfway, man. I'm right on the cusp.
Hey, man,
I'm right on the cusp, brother, man.
You caught that jealousy and that salt. I was just throwing at you.
You already know. That's the high school. That's the 9th grade.
Okay, y'all, let's get into it because for a couple of months, people have been going back and forth on the internet wondering if I'm mixed or if I am black. People will come on my page and be like, girl, you're black. And other people will be like, girl, you're clearly biracial. You're clearly mixed, right? Now, the gag is, I'm going to show y'all my DNA, but people automatically assume like I'm just straight black. Just because my mom is biracial and my dad is black. But what people do not know is that everybody's genetic makeup is different. We inherit different things from our parents. So I'm about to show y'all my DNA results because people be looking at me crazy when I tell y'all I am mixed, and it took me a long time to really be okay with my identity. So let me show y'all. Okay, so here's the truth. I am 58% black. I have 58% from black origins, okay, as y'all can see, and then 40.3% comes from European, so white. So I'm gonna let y'all see that. So as y'all can see, I'm actually more than just black and white, like a lot of us are, but y'all would not know until y'all go take that DNA test. But yes, my mom is biracial, my dad is black, right? People will automatically assume I'm 75% black. I used to think the same thing. But as y'all can see, I am biracial, okay? I am. People need to stop telling me like what I am. I know what I am. I'm mixed. Simple as that. I'm claiming black and I'm also claiming white, okay? Simple as that.
Is being a black person that's 30 to 50% European a result of racial misclassification, personal confusion, or just a result of how history impacted African American identity in the Americas and a reflection of the history of this nation through Ancestry? Let's get into it. So in this video, I want to give some commentary about genetically mixed light-skinned African American identity and some of the like crossroads and challenges that many people face because of the racial system in this country. And also the recent kind of conversations in the last 10 years or so about like mixed race identity and the one drop rule and classification and colorism and all that good stuff. So I kind of just want to give some perspective on that in reaction to a few clips. So I wanted to show you guys this girl's DNA test results that I saw on a Ancestry.com Reddit forum that I follow. And I really wanted to show these because her results were very, very, very similar to mine. Basically the same percentages in the same countries, just in different percentages, basically. But yeah, so just to give you guys an idea of like my phenotype, skin color, and like also my genetic ancestry. So yeah, technically I am considered more multiracial, but I kind of identify more with like the African European mixed experience. But of course, we always want to give acknowledgement to our indigenous ancestries as well, even if it is at a really small percentage. But yeah, I just wanted to show an example of that, of how these results tend to show up for a lot of North, South, and Caribbean Afro-descendant people. So this was a great example. So first I want to react to the clip of the girl talking about how she posted her DNA results and she came out to be 55% European genetically, but she has two black parents. And shout out to the original creator who posted that. She has a lot of great content about MGM, African American identity, so definitely go check her out. I will have that channel linked in the description box below. It's called The Future is Golden. So shout out to you. I like a lot of their content. So yeah. I thought that was a really good video because it really highlights kind of the dilemma that many of us are in. And I've talked a lot about how I am genetically mixed on both sides, but I do have two brown skinned parents. My mom is African American and my dad is Bahamian and Cuban. So my parents are basically genetically the same thing, but they're from two different ethnicities. So I'm MGM, but I'm also culturally mixed, but I'm also genetically mixed. It's kind of weird. So I could kind of completely understand where that girl was coming from, even though she has two African American parents, but my African American side is like her family, so we're heavily mixed as well. And I was always pretty much like told about my family history. Now I wasn't taught to identify as mixed, clearly, because that's something I've even kind of had to come into being more comfortable with on my channel. But I always knew my family history. I always knew that I was part Irish. I always knew that came from biracial people, and then when I took a DNA test, it just confirmed what I already knew, so like wasn't a shocker to me. And I always noticed that my family was some of the few people I have ever met to this day or even seen online that are black American that will acknowledge that they're just African and European. Don't try to pretend to be Native American, none of that. My family always in a tongue-in-cheek type of way. But yeah, I was always taught that I was African and European. And then on my dad's side, I do have Taino ancestry because the Caribbean, obviously, but I am mainly African and European as well. So I always kind of knew that that's what I was. I wasn't shocked about that when I took a DNA test. This girl was 55% European or 55% African. I can't remember. I'm 60% African and about 35% European and the rest Taino. So yeah, I'm pretty much African and European, but I technically would be considered multiracial as well. But yeah, so I always wanted to clear that up because on my channel, I do jump between calling myself a light-skinned black woman and referring to myself as mixed. And that's because like genetically and socially, that's really what I am. I literally am both. That's why I always thought this whole mixed is not black and we need separate spaces and XYZ. I always found that discord really funny because it's like you can tell that's being driven by people who feel as though they don't exist on those overlaps, but there's a huge portion of the African diaspora that literally does, that people just choose to ignore because they have their own personal gripes with other groups in the African diaspora, and I just feel like that's really toxic. So that's kind of why I'm making this type of video as well. It's like this is a unnecessary problem that's being created, making stuff more complicated than it has to be, when we could have just addressed the isms conversation and all could have been on the same page, but then it became this whole like we need to separate and delineation weird shit. So I just don't understand that. But anyway, that's a rant for another day. But yeah, regardless of my multi-ethnic situation going on, I completely understood where this girl was coming from because this is starting to be a quote unquote thing now where people like us are having to explain like, well, technically genetically we are mixed, but we are light-skinned black women. We've only known ourselves to be black. Like both sides of my family see themselves to be black and even be part of African spirituality and things like that. So I didn't grow up with this whole like confusion and I'm only learning about being Afro-Latino and being black in 2010. Like no, that was not my experience, man. But yeah, people do not understand that genetic mixedness and like social mixedness, those are two different things. And so I've always talked about how one of the reasons why I didn't see myself to be mixed is because in the cultural context we were talking about until recently, being quote unquote mixed meant having a non-black parent and a black parent. When I thought of somebody who was mixed, I thought of somebody that we would refer to today as biracial. Now, of course, that word has been on the census for a long time, but it wasn't colloquially used like that. So when we would talk about somebody who was mixed, we were talking about a biracial person. This is also why I don't understand where this narrative is coming from, that we never used to acknowledge people as mixed, and there was just no concept, and we was just out here one drop ruling everybody, and Ozzy Osbourne was black, and like what y'all talking about? Like no, there was definitely people being called mixed. We just had a certain context for it, so that's why I never thought it was a big deal to mention. But the elephant in the room is that when you physically look genetically mixed and that's being expressed in your phenotype, people are going to ask questions or acknowledge it at some time, and it's going to become a thing. And that was definitely my experience as well. Same thing with my family. People would see my family and say the same thing and whatnot. And I noticed that her parents, they both to me look mixed, but her parents are also darker than her, and that's a similar situation that I'm in as well. Both of my parents are brown skinned, but like significantly darker than me, like not just tanned. um so yeah, so I had that whole thing going on as well, where people would see me and they'd be like, oh, I was surprised that your parents look like that. That's something I would get all the time. People would be like, oh, I was surprised that both of your parents were like that. Because when you look the way we look, people just assume that you either have two light-skinned parents or you're like biracial, or you have like a light-skinned parent and a dark-skinned parent. They never just assume you have two brown-skinned parents or two like medium-tone parents like her. You know what I mean? So that's a part of it as well. So that's why I liked her video. But yeah, that's what happens when you have two genetically multi-generationally mixed people. And it's interesting because when you apply this in the context of Latin America, people can understand this easily, and they can understand why you can have a Dominican who's in the same situation as me, where they have two brown skinned parents, but then they come out looking lighter, and then people will look at them and be like, oh, you look Dominican. But if there's an African American that looks like Mariah the Scientist, y'all will try to pretend like she don't look African American and assume like she's Latina or something. And I noticed that. So it's like when the person is a part of the Anglo speaking world and they're English speaking, it's like y'all, and they're multi-generationally mixed, y'all don't acknowledge that, and y'all quote unquote, in y'all words, quote unquote, one drop them into being black, and y'all pretend like they're not mixed. But I notice when the person is of Spanish speaking descent, y'all can understand what being multi-generationally mixed is. But then there's a catch-22 to that, because you also see what's happening is that like Cardi B, to me, she just has a light-skinned black woman phenotype, but people are calling Cardi B a whole white woman. But if Cardi B spoke English and she said she was Jamaican, nobody would be arguing about her not being black. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying I don't think Cardi B looks mixed either, but to me, she looks more of African descent to me. So I just think it's a dumb conversation. But yeah, if Cardi B did not speak Spanish, this wouldn't even be a discussion. And I know this because I'm coming from two ethnicities, and I know how y'all interpret different phenotypes based on the ethnicity they come from. So that's a part of it as well. So with this girl, what was most likely happening is that people were not accepting that she's a multi-generationally mixed African American. So they were assuming that she has to have a white parent, or she's not being completely honest about her ethnicity or XYZ, because multi-generationally mixed African Americans are not represented as that. They're represented as this doesn't exist. Like, I don't think there's anything wrong with seeing yourself to be light-skinned black, because you have some people who say silly shit like, oh, if you call yourself light-skinned black, you're erasing being mixed. How is that erasing being mixed when we're all sitting in the country speaking English? Everybody knows that this country was developed by importing African slaves here, and then the English came and colonized and also destroyed the indigenous people's land. So why is it confusing for y'all to understand that there's a group of people that are genetically the product of Africans and Europeans mixing together? Like, why is that difficult for y'all to understand? People can accept that that's in every other part of the world. Y'all can understand South African colors, y'all can understand Afro-Latinos, y'all can understand all these other groups, but when it comes to mixed African Americans, y'all don't understand this. I don't get it. if y'all are sitting around eating soul food that's a combination of African American and European food coming together, why can't y'all understand that a lot of African Americans are mixed and we call ourselves black because that's the identity that came out of that cultural exchange because of this history? Why is this difficult for people to understand? It's so annoying to me. Like, but anyway, so that's my rant. So yeah, now she has to explain to people why she's 55% European. Like, niggas don't know that this whole region was colonized. Like, the shit is annoying. Like, and before I segue into the Chris Brown clip, another dilemma that's coming up and why it's toxic to say, oh, if you're light skinned, you shouldn't call yourself black because black people are only dark skinned. First of all, not only is that ignorant as shit, and I've already gone over that a lot of these people are ignorant. They don't know what they're talking about, and I suspect these are bots. But anyway, where was I going with that? Oh yeah. So this is the thing. There are two different how do I say this? Two different groups of light-skinned black people here. In my opinion, there are people who are light-skinned black because they're heavily admixed, like this girl, and as well as myself. People who are mixed because if it's an expression of mixed genetics over the generations. There's also people who are admixed and they have a throwback gene. So these are the people who are, I would say, in the 70 to 85 range. You know what I mean? They're not mixed race, but they do have admixture. I also consider myself to have admixture too, but I also consider myself to be heavily mixed. So it gets kind of weird. But then you also have people, like I've discussed, how they're light-skinned indigenous Africans who are quote unquote 100% African, but they still have genetics that express light skin. And they might be from certain ethnicities where that lineage, that phenotypic lineage is passed down. For example, a light-skinned Igbo Nigerian that's in Nigeria today in 2025 is not the same as a monoracial light-skinned black woman in Virginia that's 15% European because of the slave trade. You know what I mean? So there's nuance within that as well. So to just tell everybody, well, if you're light-skinned, you shouldn't even call yourself black, or you should just get on the internet and pump fake like you're not black, I feel like that's weird and it's toxic and it's not helpful. I've kind of have been avoiding talking about this because I don't really like to get into the whole genetic thing, and I don't like to be kind of low-key divisive with that shit and say the difference in the groups and everything. But it is an important thing to talk about because I often also don't want monoracial light-skinned people to feel like I'm trying to force mixedness on them, or I'm trying to mixify everybody and say, oh, all light-skinned people are mixed, or we're all Afro-Latino or whatever. I'm not trying to say that. I want to be clear about that. So yeah, and I also want to be clear that and acknowledge to other light-skinned people that are mixed that I'm also not trying to ignore your mixed ancestry or trying to say that you should ignore that part of you, or that if you're biracial, have a non-black parent, that I'm not considering you light-skinned because you're not, you know what I mean? That's not what I'm trying to do, or telling other MGMs to, ignore being 40% European. I'm not trying to do that as well. So that's why I try to avoid the nitty-gritty of this type of stuff, but I have been feeling like this is an important thing to touch on, and I also wanted y'all to understand the perspective I was coming from with presenting myself as both a light-skinned black woman and mixed as well. So yeah, I can kind of understand the cultural context of being mixed as well as the genetic context of being mixed, and they're not the same, and they're also not interchangeable as well. They are monoracial people who are multi-ethnic. I have a lot of friends that are half Jamaican, half Cuban, and you would not suspect they were mixed at all. They dark skinned. You could drop them in West Africa right now, you would be none the wiser. They grew up in two cultures just like me, but they're not genetically mixed in the same way as me as well. So we're going to have different experiences in that regard, but we can also relate to a lot of things because we might share the same culture, or we understand how it is having to navigate two different cultures. So it's a very interesting thing. I also like listening to monoracial, multi-ethnic people because I think they have a lot of good insight as well, and I tend to understand where they're coming from and relate in the same way that I also can a lot of times relate to what biracial people are talking about as well, even though both of my parents are brown skinned. But because I have to navigate two cultures, I can relate to a lot of the stuff that they're talking about, especially considering the fact that phenotypically I look biracial, so I know how weird people treat mixed people even though I have two black parents. So yeah, it's interesting. But anyway, let me move on to the Chris Brown clip. And y'all know I'm not a fan of Chris Brown. Y'all know how I feel about him. I'm not going to get into that, okay? I'm here to discuss business. We're not here to talk about my personal gripes with certain individuals. So let's get into the commentary, but had to put that disclaimer out there because just because I use somebody as an example doesn't mean I agree with them, or I'm fond of them, or I'm a supporter of them, or XYZ. My mentality towards Mr. Chris Beat 'em Damn Brown has been very well documented. So let's just get into the commentary. So I'm going to respond to the clip segment by segment and then give my reaction to some of the tweets that were reacting to the clip. And first I want to talk about the whole hair texture thing and him being half white or whatever. So, although I don't like his ass, I think that was a good tongue-in-cheek, light-skinned moment, and I think that was also a good example of like a older person poking fun at a younger person, and the younger person being able to pick up what they're putting down, and that the fact that he pointed that out, you shows that he's like a mature. I'm talking about the brown skinned dude, like the host. I forgot his name, but I know he's pretty prominent. But yeah, like a lot of older people, they're not gonna point out like, oh, you caught that shade I was throwing at you, but they'll just do it just to be shady. And as far as the hair texture comment, it was not productive for him to comment on his hair texture, whether it be kinky or straighter or curly or whatever it is. Just wasn't his business to say, oh, do you put a perm in your hair? And that's why Chris clapped back and said that shit. You know what I mean? Like, typical tit for tat shit. I've been talking about that a lot on my channel, how that kind of like negging shit is part of like black culture, specifically black male culture. So yeah, it wasn't his business whether Chris Brown put a perm in his hair or it's from genetics or not. I'm not gonna sit up here and speculate because I'm just gonna be honest with you. You would be surprised how many people out here are pathological liars when it comes to their hair texture. So I don't really care, but listen, I know I have my suspicions. And I'm only saying that because it wasn't a productive line of conversation, because genetics don't determine hair texture. This is something I've been discussing ad nauseum on my channel. So even if it is his hair texture or not, there are people who are not genetically half white who could have loose hair or wavy hair or straight hair or whatever. So yeah, just like there are people whose hair texture is impacted because we are mixed, and that's why I made that distinction between people who are light skinned because we're genetically mixed versus people who are light skinned because they have admixture or throwback gene or just genetics or whatever. You know what I mean? That should be pointed out as well. So what Chris Brown responded wasn't wrong or incorrect, but I'm just saying that is true. Like, one doesn't equal the other. So that final piece of commentary I delivered segued perfectly into the comment reactions, and how most people were clowning him, saying like, oh, he's not half white, like your mom is the biracial one, so that makes you quote unquote 75% black, which, I mean, humans are not pie chart fractions in a third grade math book. That's not how life works, especially when people went through a whole transatlantic slave trade for like 600 years. That those numbers and those percentages are not going to percentage out the way you suspect they are. I would also appreciate if you like the video and subscribe to the channel if you are not already and the content resonates with you. Welcome, as well as making sure you hit the bell for notifications so you'll be informed every time I upload a new video or go live. I'd also encourage you to check out my Patreon, where you can access old and exclusive content, as well as having early access to new uploads. That will be linked in the description box below. Again, I don't like to speculate on genetics or get into that. I'm not qualified, nor do I care that much to really do that. But most likely, considering that Chris Brown has a biracial mother, directly first generation biracial mother, that matters. But anyway, he has that mother and then a brown to dark skinned father. Most likely Chris Brown is probably in the 60% range, like myself. Of course that's just speculation, but that's what I would think. And I mean, being 40% something is a lot closer to being half than being, I don't know, 15% something. So I mean, he is not incorrect by saying he's practically almost half white. But yeah, that's just what I suspect. But I also think that it's interesting that people are so intent with saying that he's anti-black for saying that he's part white. And maybe in that context it wasn't the most appropriate time to bring that up, but it's not incorrect to say that he's mixed. And this is also where I kind of feel like the American mentality towards mixedness is weird, especially when you start factoring all the ism conversations that people like to dull in. Like, if you're gonna say that biracial people are racing monoracial black people, then how are you gonna also be mad that somebody who phenotypically looks like Chris Brown is saying that they're mixed. That's what I never understood. It's like, okay, y'all want to push the biracial women out, but there's always going to be light-skinned black women like me that look half white that y'all can't tell from the biracial people. And so what, we going to go get the jobs and then y'all going to be complaining about that too, but we technically have two black parents. So it's just a weird dynamic. And that's why I also did want to talk about this, because there's a lot of intersections and overlaps with the things that people talk about. But when people are only speaking from their own perspective, they don't take into account people like us that fall into those weird ranges where it could go either way with us. We're like too mixed to deny being mixed, but we're too black and have two black parents to where it is self-hatred. I feel like if you run around saying you're not black, but you were raised as a black person your whole life, and you were sitting up in the house with two black parents regardless of their skin tone, that's just weird. Like, you can acknowledge you're mixed, but I just feel like that's mad fucking weird to all of a sudden start saying you're not black because you're light skinned or you got a DNA test. That shit is just weird. But that's not what Chris Brown was saying at all. But yeah, so I just thought that the reaction was very interesting, and people saying that like, oh, he's self-hating and he's anti-black and this and that. So this is exactly why a lot of us who are multi-generationally mixed have for a long time either ignored that part of ourselves or not mentioned it, because when you do mention it, people would clown you and say you hate yourself or that you're trying to be different or that you're lying or XYZ, and you would get this reaction. So that's why in my head, when I thought of somebody who was quote unquote mixed, I thought of a first generation biracial person. And even in this thread, you can see that that idea is being reinforced, because to me, Chris Brown looks like he could be first generation mixed. He could have a whole non-black parent. Same thing with myself. So I just feel like it's weird when people like that, like who look like us, when people get mad that we say that we're mixed. But then if somebody like that girl posts her DNA results and y'all see that we're half white, then y'all trying to make it seem like they're an impersonator or they're like hiding their white parent somewhere. It's like, no white person exists for 100 years. No white parent is here. Well, what's the problem? So yeah, it's just a very interesting dynamic. And yeah, Chris Brown is a great example of what I was talking about earlier. If Chris Brown was Afro-Latino, y'all would not be saying, oh, he's anti-black for saying he's mixed. Oh, he's not mixed, his mother is. If Chris Brown was from Cuba, y'all would not be saying he's anti-black for saying he's mixed. But yeah, anyway. So then you'll also have the people who have the school of thought that will say, well, Chris Brown doesn't have two black parents. He has a mixed parent and a black parent. Okay, logistically, that's true. So what's the point of saying that? Are you trying to say now that the kid shouldn't be called black either? I guess that's what they're trying to say. But then this is what's going to happen. See, they'll claim people who are mixed people's kids that look like Chris Brown who have a mixed race phenotype. But if you see people's kids that are brown skin or dark skin that look monoracial, that have 4C hair, these same people with this hyper fixation on mixedness and delineation, they wouldn't claim quote unquote 75% mixed kids that look monoracially black or are darker skin. They would be trying to say that, oh, you're probably lying about having a white grandparent. Oh, you just want to be here to date the women XYZ. They would be treating them the same way they would treat monoracial dark skin black people. So a lot of this has to do with phenotype and looks. That's why I think it's dangerous to try to be doing all that delineation stuff based on quote unquote being mixed or alluding to being no. You need to go with culture and lineage. Don't focus on phenotype. Don't focus on any of that other stuff or racial classification. People need to just focus on culture, because that's what actually matters.
I said you were other.
Okay, what's
and
other?
You are other.
What's other? Explain to the public, because my fans are really upset. They think that when I repeated that I'm saying that I'm not black, which is not the truth.
Black is a color, first of all, so don't listen to that.
Okay, but can you explain so they can get off
other
the back about
it? That your mother is one color and your daddy.
Okay, you told me I was mixed with what?
So let's just clear some things up for your fans and everybody.
Okay.
Today, December 11th, you are saying on record that Keisha's father is an Italian Caucasian who has passed away, and Keisha has never seen a picture of him. She's never seen.
But we can get a picture. He had his own bar and grill. It's called Pal Joey's.
Really?
He was at East Ridgemont, San
Guys,
Jose.
as a young girl, I looked up Pal Joey's. I called 411. Y'all remember that?
It's in San Jose. It's in San Jose. I'm not gonna wait.
Does he have family?
First, she told me it was in Los Angeles, guys. And I called Los Angeles, and it was not one there.
I don't know anybody.
So
I don't know anybody because, you want me to be honest?
Yes, please.
Nah, I'm keeping.
Oh, come on. Like, this is just not cool.
He was a guy that I used to date.
Okay.
We figured.
I know that part.
When I was a
Okay.
lady of leisure.
Okay. Did you?
And I became attached.
Okay.
Because he went to his grave trying to get me to stop doing prostitution.
Okay.
And
how did you meet him?
Well, it speaks for itself.
Okay.
Prostitute.
Did you not?
No, I never told her that.
Oh boy.
Now that you asked me that, he picked me up and he told me, you too pretty to be on the street. And he took me to his bar and I was drunk and we talked. We didn't do anything. And he said, you don't need to be out here. What are you doing? What are you doing? And then he used to come and get me. He said, how much your pimp want? And he would give me the money to take to him. And he would keep me all night and talk to me. He cared. He really did.
You're hearing this for some of this for the first time, I'm assuming.
He was a wonderful guy. He wasn't my type.
Well, see, the problem with that is that there's someone else
that's saying that's not
that
it.
he's your father?
He's not your father.
She's
Okay, and so the last clip I want to talk about is Keyshia Cole and her mother Frankie discussing her ancestry and who her father is. And if you consumed a lot of trashy Y2K TV like myself, then you remember the whole saga where her mom and her father, well, the not knowing of who her father is and you know how all that played out. Honestly, I kind of thought the reality show was a little boring because I was like younger at that time, but I did start going back and watching some clips and it gave me a lot more context of this interaction. And I've been wanting to talk about this situation with Keyshia Cole for a very long time because what happened to her is just very sad, and the situation that her mom created for her is really unfortunate. But I feel like this is kind of an unspoken thing that a lot of light-skinned Black people have experienced in a way, to an extent where I just mean, like, how do I say this? Sometimes in our culture, people have made up lore to why people look certain ways because the reality of why that light-skinned child looks that way might have been too much for that person to bear, or they're ashamed about it. So therefore they would make up a narrative. This is why you have a whole bunch of people who think they have an Indian grandma with long straight hair. Then you pull shorty up and you're looking at a mulatto. So yeah, it's really unfortunate. And I understand that that's not Keyshia Cole's situation directly, but we know that Frankie was living a hard knock life at that time. I suspect, she was doing what she had to do to sustain herself and came with child, did not know who Keisha's father was, saw that she had a light-skinned baby, and that generation, that boomer, silent generation, Frankie will be definitely a boomer, let me say that. Those boomers, especially the boomers who really went through stuff, they were very color struck. They had a lot of weird mentalities about Blackness, and they had these weird mentality towards interracial dating as well. So I'm not surprised that somebody who came from Frankie's situation would say, well, instead of admitting that your father is this abusive Black male that I hooked up with one night and happened to have this high yellow baby, I can tell this baby that they have another group and maybe give this child a little bit of self-esteem so that they're not weighed down by the weight of my actions and the situation that they were birthed from. That's the most PC, nicest way I can put that situation. And the unfortunate thing about that generation and the previous ones before then, and to an extent this is still going on, But I do think Gen X did a lot better about this. Gen X and like now millennials, us, and Gen Z, us, and as well. You know what I mean? But those older generations, they kept a lot of stuff hidden or lied about it, and then it just ended up creating a worse situation. Like, I'm not saying that as a child, Frankie had to be constantly telling Keisha like, oh, I don't know who your dad is, but this was the situation, or had to like overshare or like traumatize her, anything like that. But I do think that you're causing just more issues by not being honest or making up a whole story about how this baby came about and not being honest. I mean, we've all watched Tyler Perry films, so we know how this goes down. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I wouldn't be surprised if Frankie was one of those types of black women who low-key wanted her baby to be half white, because there has been historically a very, very, very small minority of black women who do think that it's better to have a baby with a white man to have quote unquote good hair, or they would target light-skinned men to have light-skinned babies or things like that. You have a lot of these pick-meshas and black male worshipers who project their male identification onto all black women, and they try to make it seem like this group is way bigger than it is, and that this is the mentality of most black women. Like, if you let the narcissistic black males and the male identified pick-meshas in the black community tell it, it's a whole bunch of black women just chasing around white men, and I don't got time for it. It's like, no, that was Frankie and a few weirdos in her generation, and life went on. Most light-skinned people are the product of two black people getting together. Most likely a light-skinned woman getting with a dark-skinned man, because most black women are black male worshipers, period, which is why we're in this situation arguing about this today. Y'all just want to take the heat off y'all black daddies and y'all boyfriends, so y'all want to make it a women's issue when it's not. But anyway, back to Frankie. So yeah, long story short, she was ashamed about the life she was living and wanted that white man to be Keisha Cole's father, and she ended up creating more problems than it even had to be, and putting more psychological damage onto her child by just not being honest about it, because that generation walks around with a lot of shame. And I understand Frankie was living a difficult life, and I understand why she had shame and felt some type of way about the whole situation. I get it. But yeah, you just harmed your child and lied to your kid and gave them a bunch of confusion to basically protect your own ego. Like, that's messed up. And then you got this girl looking out here looking silly, claiming that she's half white, when everybody just sees that she's a light-skinned black girl, and everybody would have accepted that. And I mean, most people in the black community come from a fatherless situation, so why is that even something for Keisha Cole to be ashamed of, that her father was a light-skinned black dude or whatever? I suspect her father was a light-skinned black man. I never believed that her father was white. Never believed it. And eventually, I forget, I think it was on BET, I think it was on the same show, or it was on like a special with Keisha Cole or something. Somehow it was revealed that I'm 90% sure her dad is a light-skinned black guy. But yeah, Frankie created a whole bunch of unnecessary drama just out of shame. But I did want to talk about this because I'm gonna have to do a more in-depth video about this. But a huge reason why a lot of stuff about specifically African European mixed people's history is not talked about in this country is because a lot of people are ashamed of historically how a lot of these children came about. And because we live in a black man worshiping culture with a vested interest of continuing to make black women the scapegoat, people do not want to talk about the rampant sexual violence that black women were facing from white men that they claim that we're chasing today. One of the main reasons a lot of black women moved during the Great Migration is because of the rampant sexual violence that black women were dealing with from their white male employers, mainly, and just around, you know what I mean, in the South. See, nobody talks about that. Nobody talks about that, funny enough. But yeah, so this whole narrative that, oh, they were house slaves and XYZ, it's really ironic that y'all still keep bringing that up, because this dynamic of black women being assaulted and resulting in mixed children went on way longer past slavery than y'all would like to accept. This whole black comes in all shades thing comes from not acknowledging that was going on, and just let's keep moving on, and let's not acknowledge that this 13-year-old child is now pregnant and the child looked nothing like nobody in the house. Like, we're just gonna pretend like that's not happening. That's what was happening. So I also find it disrespectful that people keep trying to blame that on the one drop rule as well, when a lot of this was covered up because it was a result of sexual violence, not because of a one drop rule. But anyway, I'm kind of going on a tangent, but I'm just making the point that a lot of light skinned and mixed people's history has been sacrificed because people are ashamed, essentially, and don't want to be honest about what was really going on. But yeah, that's just my rant. Get in the comment section. Let me know what y'all thought about this video. I appreciate all the support. Peace.